All right, let's go ahead and get started. So hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's virtual learning session, How to Transform Clinical Trial Management with a Modern Data Approach. My name is Sarah. I'm the VP of Marketing here at BrainSell, and I will play the role of your host for today's event. But before I turn it over to our presenters to introduce themselves, I'm going to run through a few quick housekeeping items. So we've carved out about 30 minutes for this presentation, and we do encourage your interaction throughout. If you have questions at any point during the discussion, please feel free to drop them into the question box. I will be monitoring that and will serve up your questions to our presenters as we go. And then finally, this session is being recorded. You'll receive an email likely tomorrow morning containing a link to the recording and the slides and other resources referenced throughout the conversation today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters today to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Ralph Jaquez, and I'm a senior data architect.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Frost, and I'm a lead business intelligence analyst.
All right, thank you, Ralph and Megan. Appreciate you being here today. So before we get started, just going to review the agenda of what we plan to discuss today. So we're going to start with setting the stage and looking at some of the common challenges, the data challenges for CROs. Then we'll talk about a modern approach to solving those challenges. And then we'll move into talking about a data spotlight and some work that we've done with other CROs and successes that they have realized. And then we'll move into our more formalized Q&A session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Megan, to kick us off.
Great, thanks, Sarah. And let's dive into the data challenges for clinical research organizations. So today, data is being produced and consumed at volumes higher than ever before. And in many industries, data is the foundation for making strategic decisions, and clinical research is no different. The data that's being collected during the clinical trial research process is important for various reasons, but some of the top ones include things like evidence generation, because the ultimate goal of clinical research is to generate evidence that informs healthcare decision-making. So high quality data collected by CROs contributes to the body of the evidence supporting things like safety and efficacy and value of new medical interventions. It also contributes to regulatory compliance. Clinical research is heavily regulated, and data plays a huge role in ensuring compliance with those regulations. High quality data needs to be collected so that they can maintain accordance with guidelines and standards to demonstrate the safety and efficacy of their research. And then finally, data is used to track quality assurance and monitor the process of a trial. Monitoring the process and quality really helps to maintain safety, monitor patient safety, etc., and it helps maintain the integrity and validity of the study results. So with all of this data comes a lot of common problems, things like reliance on spreadsheets, multiple data sources with lots of complexity, data quality and accuracy challenges, resource constraints for time to build reports and dashboards. It also takes a long time to compile and deliver reports. And a lot of the time, there's duplicated effort to produce similar reports from different subject matters. And so now Ralph is going to explain why, a big reason why these problems occur.
Yeah, so let's focus a little bit on the left side of that screen, the old way. So traditional integration methods tend to be this way. They tend to be point to point. And we see the exact same thing, whether the organization is small or the organization is large. You've got different systems. You end up shuffling data from one system to the other. There's always spreadsheets involved. What we find is perhaps this system can't really do certain things, so you try to augment that with a spreadsheet. Maybe that gets loaded into another system. And well, you can kind of see where the previous challenges come from that we discussed. So there's this reliance on the spreadsheets. There ends up being multiple data sources, which you can't necessarily change because one system is better at one thing than another. And also there's data quality issues, because while one system has this data and you're moving it from one place to another, maybe there's issues in that transfer. Maybe it takes some time to get data from one system to the next. So now that creates the issue of your reports have to be timed exactly right. You want to run the reports at this time because that's when the data is in this system or in that system. And again, going back to the importance of data for a clinical research organization, that really is the crux of all that's being produced, is all of this data going into these various systems. And so you could see this old way of moving data back and forth, maybe pulling it into a spreadsheet, sending it here for a report, has some challenges. The new way, and we'll get into this in some of the in the next slide, is really looking at all of that data in a holistic way. And it's definitely a more modern way of doing this. So instead of looking at the data from each individual system and shuffling data back and forth, what we look at is one unified, cohesive movement of data. And in that next slide, we'll see what that solution is. And the process here is to look at the data again in a sort of unified way. All of the systems, how do they affect our final outcome? What pieces of data do we need from this system versus that system? And we extract all of that data in the same level of steps. Then that goes through an organization process. As we mentioned before in the point-to-point, each system has elements of data that are important. Perhaps you're tracking your site visits as a CRO in one system. And you're tracking what you expect the projections for those site visits in another system, like a spreadsheet. Well, being able to bring all of that together into one place and organize it means that then the following steps, which are curating that data or preparing the data so that it can be consumed, preparing the data so that you can do whatever type of reporting or aggregations are needed, all of that happening in unified steps now means that we can consume all of that data in one final step. Now, granted, there are going to be a lot of different versions of this depending on the various reports that get produced, who the consumers of those reports are. But the point is, if you look at it as one unified pipeline or as one unified process, we get to combat each one of those challenges that we mentioned before. And if we go on to the next slide, we'll notice here that what's our outcome? Well, first of all, we have one true centralized source of truth. This is a thing that many organizations are chasing. And a lot of times we think that that centralized source of truth is one of our systems. Well, maybe it's our CRM, maybe it's our ERP. In a clinical research organization, perhaps it's that clinical research management system. But again, when you have multiple data sources, how can any one of them be the central source of truth? You'd have to move data back and forth. But when we look at things in that unified way, as we saw in the previous slide, now we have a centralized source of truth, and it's actually our data platform. So now all of those data sources, they're integrated, they're organized for us in a way that we can now consume them from wherever we need to use them. So our reports can actually be delivered in a timely fashion. We can automate them. We can run reports on a regular basis, hourly, daily, whatever that cadence is, because we're getting all of the data into one place, we can actually deliver those reports in a way that makes sense. Additionally, those reports, remember one of the challenges that we discussed and that many organizations face is that perhaps you're creating multiple versions of a report or sharing metrics between reports for different departments and different groups. And what happens a lot of times is they don't coincide. This one shows this number, that one shows that number. Well, if all of our data is being prepared in one place, we're able to make sure that all of the reports are accurate and are showing all of the same numbers. Additionally, being able to bring all of the data into one place means that you can actually identify data quality issues a lot faster. So when you're looking at your process, what are the aspects of your process that are producing data, how they're producing data, and what that data is, you'll be able to identify quickly what the data quality issues are, improve that data quality, but also perhaps even adjust your process. We find that many times it's not that necessarily the data itself needs to change, right? This is the data that's being produced by the research, or this is the data that's being produced by this given process, but maybe the process needs to be adjusted. And given that everything now is in one central location, all of your data sources are integrated, you're able to see that. And another benefit of being able to have all of the data in one place, regardless of the data source, is being able to apply even more advanced analytic techniques, like using AI or ML models to really look at that data and perhaps find inconsistencies or find issues in the data that need to be resolved as well. Let's now take a look at a data spotlight, and Megan will do that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ralph, for that explanation. So now we're going to briefly explore an example of an end product that ties together all of the things we just talked about. So for this specific example, this is a mock-up of a dashboard we created for a client that faced many of the problems we just talked about: reporting in spreadsheets, multiple source systems, taking a very long time to compile and deliver reports, etc. So we designed this dashboard to combine data from multiple systems. The site and subject data that the client used was stored in a clinical trial management system, or CTMS. The projection and forecast data lived in spreadsheets, and then employee data was stored in a human resource management system. So by bringing all of this data into a centralized data platform, we were able to report on this and create basically a dashboard for them to run their company on. So decision makers in the company can better manage resources, to allocate to different projects. They can track the progress of the different projects that they're running, to see, are the correct amount of subjects being enrolled in time? Are timelines on schedule? Are they behind schedule, etc.? So now the company is able to make very proactive decisions instead of reactive ones, because the lead time from data collection to report compilation to distribution has significantly decreased. And we brought in other things to help automate the process as well. But this is just one example of how we brought multiple systems together and designed something with a client to help them make their process better. So now we're gonna transfer back over to Sarah to talk about how we can help you do something similar.
Great, thank you, Megan. So for those of you that have joined us today, we are offering a data readiness assessment, and that is a one-to-one conversation with our data experts that we have here on the call. And it's to assess your organization's current state, understand where you are in your data-driven journey. You'll receive technical guidance to help accelerate your data modernization solutions, and then we'll receive a live demo of example solutions. So if you're interested in taking advantage of that, it's complimentary. You can email us at growth@brainsell.com. And when we send the recording over tomorrow morning, we'll also include this in the email so you have it as well. But again, if you're interested in taking advantage of the data readiness assessment, it's completely free. You can email us at growth@brainsell.com. And so now we're going to move into our Q&A segment. So if you have any questions, now's the time to drop them into the question box for our presenters. For Ralph and Megan, for organizations that are still on the traditional model that you talked about and looking to move to this modern solution, what are some of the things that they should consider in preparation for that?
the nice thing about the new way or the new model is that it can very much coexist in a sense with the existing. And that makes it a little bit easier. A lot of times with point-to-point integrations, which is the common way of doing things, you worry about breaking certain things. So for example, if you rely right now on moving data from an ERP into your management system, for example, well, you don't want to stop that while you start building something new or start working on something new. And the new approach or this new process doesn't require that. Because you're looking at that unified data platform, or you're looking at your data platform as that central source of truth, that means we can extract the data from those sources and bring it into that platform without worrying about what's being written or what's being read in other places from those systems. So it is kind of a nice approach that you could even test out in the sense that you don't need to stop or break anything of what's currently running in order to do things in this new way.
Great. And how long does it take to get something like this set up?
That's a good question, and I'll piggyback a bit on the answer. It obviously depends a lot on the systems, how what an organization may already have set up. A lot of times also how those systems are set up, whether the systems are cloud-based, whether they're on-premise, where the organization wants to store this data. Do they want to store it in their cloud, in the public cloud, on-premise? So there's a couple of considerations there. But in general, the process from start to finish can be several weeks, not necessarily several months, to see some insights and to see some value out of that data. Again, the main reason is because we're able to extract the data, organize it, and curate it outside of the systems where it's being processed. So it's not going to impact how those systems are currently operating or what those systems are currently doing.
Great. It looks like that is all we have for questions. Any final thoughts, Ralph or Megan, before we wrap up?
I would say we'd love to talk in person with anyone that is interested. Obviously, every organization has different data challenges, but this new approach, this new way of doing it, really allows us to kind of hone in on what those challenges are and solve them in the best way possible.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ralph and Megan, for joining us. And again, if you're interested in taking advantage of the data readiness assessment, you can contact us at growth@brainsell.com to schedule it. We will send you an email with the recording and the slides and additional information on the readiness assessment. You'll see that email in your inbox likely tomorrow morning. And thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.